Hi, Dr. Ruth Anderson here with Enlightened World Network. We're here for another session of Divine Relationship Recovery with our host, Deb Goldberg. We're so excited to be here with you today and cannot wait to see where this topic takes us. Before Deb gets started, I wanted to make sure you know you're invited to attend Friday, April 24th, 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, Sisters Supporting Sisters, with one of our guests, Susan Ellis Saller. We're looking forward to that time together. And it's a beautiful time of just coming together around the Zoom table, checking in with each other, seeing how everything's going, how folks are handling everything, and how we can support each other. So we're looking forward to that. And then on Sunday, starting at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern, we have a silent meditation with Deb Goldberg, Terry Angel, and myself. And then on the next hour at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time, we have Come to the Circle. Come to the Circle is going to be led by Terry Angel, and it is a ceremony with a talking stick. So I haven't ever done that. I'm looking forward to doing that. So with that, Deb, I think we're ready to start with Divine Relationship Recovery.
Well, that is awesome. I'm really looking forward to those shows. They have been it has been fun to do the Sisters to Sister show, and it has been a lot of fun to and really meaningful to do the silent meditations. And I'm looking forward to doing the Come to the Circle. I have done before use the talking stick, so it's really interesting how that works, and it's like a ceremony. It's really beautiful.
Cool.
So our show tonight is called The Pressure of Your Passion. We're going to talk about looking inside ourselves and see what we're feeling urgency about, whether you're allowing your dream to unfold, or you feel that you keep feeling the pressure to keep doing, as if you might run out of time of getting your divine calling out. Doing your purpose of what you came here for. So we're supposed to be seeking balance and peace, have peaceful joy about our purpose and our calling and how it unfolds. And I know for myself, we had talked about this, and hopefully Terry's going to come in and join us after she's finished with her meditation on Earth Day, that the three of us, well, I know I'm an A-type personality, and I think, Ruth, you've mentioned that yourself too. And so we're very driven. I have been very driven all of my life. And once I was awakened, 5.5 years ago, and then given all of this beautiful wisdom that I share with you on this show, and books started to come through, I was like, oh my God, I have to get this out. I have to let people know. And it was like a burning passion for me, like I was on fire. My soul was on fire with wanting to teach and bring forth what Jesus and God and the angels had been giving me. And so Jesus had dictated, 3 books at one time to me. It gave me dates of when they were supposed to be published. And so he probably gave them to me in February of 2016. And told me by September, at a specific date, they needed to be at the publishers and going live. And I was like, okay, that doesn't seem too bad. But, I had never written before. And there was a part of me that was in a lot of resistance. I had so much fear about putting these books out. So I dawdled a lot. And I finally got them out in September, exactly the date he gave them to me of what I needed to do. But all along, even though I was dawdling doing that, I felt so much pressure. And even when I got them out, I was like, okay, now what do I need to do? And then more books came that I haven't finished yet for 3 years now. And but I felt pressure to get myself known, to market myself, uh, to post every single day. Uh, it was really creating anxiety in me because I felt so much pressure. I felt so much passion. It was like an unbalanced energy that just it was like spewing everywhere, and I didn't have the peace I needed around doing the things that I needed to do. So in one of my meditations with Jesus, he said, okay, what would happen if we took time off the table? Because it was time that was creating all of this pressure in me, like I was going to run out of time, or that I wasn't going to be able to bring my passion to life, my purpose to help other people. And I said, well, if there was no time limit, I probably wouldn't feel as much pressure about getting everything out. And it was significant when I really sat back and looked at it, because we're all understanding that there's a new paradigm right now. There's a complete change in a shift in our consciousness. And part of that is knowing that there is no such thing as time. But on the other hand, what happens when you get messages like, okay, I want you to get this out by a certain date? And it wasn't like he was sitting with a whip, saying, come on, let's do this, It was, but even though he said, okay, September, and he gave me, what is that, 6 months, 7 months to do what he asked me to do, the pressure that I built up inside of myself created so much anxiety. And it's awful to do that to ourselves. Now, let's go back to 2011 or whatever. I opened up my own practice with a really great friend of mine, Dr. Sheth, who's a psychiatrist. And so we opened this outpatient practice, and it was like my dream come true. I had always wanted to have my own practice. And here it was happening. And I didn't actually even have to go looking for it. He came to me and said, hey, let's do this. There was an opportunity. Let's do this, Deb. And that's another issue about, we don't have to go out and find things because they keep coming to us. God keeps bringing us everything that we need for our life to unfold in the way that it's supposed to, as part of our story. But I was so excited to do that I actually took on too much work. And I was loving what I was doing, but then I took on lots of other administrative types of things that created, and so I learned that this was actually a tendency of mine, of creating anxiety in myself, creating pressure to perform, which is actually ego consciousness. It is the ego who wants it wants notice to get noticed. And the only way it knows to do that is out of performance. So I had done so much and worked so hard for a few years getting that business started that I actually had a mini stroke from it. And it was like, whoa, and this is how I wasn't even paying attention to myself, that I was standing in the mirror getting ready for a better bed in the bathroom, and I think I was brushing my hair, and all of a sudden this like wave came over me, and it felt like you know how we say we have all these neurotransmitters and stuff in our head? It felt like an electrical circuit board that just went, bzzz, it just fried. And so my whole face, I noticed, went like droopy down. And I was extremely tired, and I crawled into bed, and my husband wasn't home. He was working out of town. And so I just crawled into bed and went to sleep, and I got up in the morning like nothing happened. I didn't even understand what happened, but I was so focused on work that I never went to the doctor. And so there's this constant pressure, and it is coming from ego consciousness, as if you're going to miss out. Like, how do you learn how to do things in a relaxed way? So what else I had figured out too is what was going on with all of that anxiety, and I was working. Oh my goodness, I had to be working 12 to 14 hours a day, every day after day. And what happens when we are in that state, we're releasing a lot of cortisol and adrenaline in our body. And what that does is it ramps you up. This gives you the energy to keep going. It's sort of like being in that fight or flight mode. That's what adrenaline does to you. It's only supposed to happen when you're in trauma. And so a lot of us live like this day to day, of releasing the cortisol and adrenaline, because it gives us energy. It makes us feel alive. It keeps us moving. And so the outcome of all of that was, I think I went for a hair test. Somebody was testing, like my vitamins and nutrients in my body, and they took a hair sample. And she said, "You are under a lot of stress."
Wow.
And I said, "Well, for the last so many years, I have been going really hard, working a lot of hours, doing things I didn't know how to do, that I took on by myself, and I wasn't asking for help. And I just felt so driven to do things right. And I didn't know how to ask for help." And so she said, this is not just stress from 5 years. I'm talking about a lifetime full of stress.
Wow.
So the pressure to perform started, really young, because of the way that I grew up. And I had so much anxiety in me, I didn't know, I had no idea. And I didn't even know I was going to share this tonight. But when you start to live your lifestyle like that, this is what creates disease states. When you have cortisol and adrenaline running, and you get addicted to it because it gives you energy, and you don't even realize that you're actually punishing your body, because you just used to, like, okay, I gotta go, I'm going, and then one day something says, you're not going anymore. You are not going anywhere anymore. So it is really important to take notice of this. And so what I noticed is, after I woke up and then I had even more passion in a whole different way, that same anxiety was controlling me again. And it was pressure to perform, and pressure about running against the clock, because what I wanted to bring forth I felt so important. And I didn't know how to do it without that pressure. So Ruth, you can chime in anytime you want.
There's Terry Angel. Nice. Hello, Terry Angel. We were just talking about being a workaholic, even if it's in the spiritual realm.
Hi, ladies.
Hello, my dear.
I'm so glad that you joined us.
Thank you. I just got off of my live that I was on.
I I know, and I know. So that I'm very happy that you were able to come on here, because I know that you were busy doing your meditation for Earth Day. Thank you.
Yes, yes, I did a full time heal session for everyone that wanted to participate.
I listened to it too.
Thank you. Yeah, it was beautiful.
That's awesome.
So I'm so happy to be here with you ladies. Oh my gosh, you all are so near and dear to my heart. I
Oh,
love you.
I
yes,
love you too.
yes, I love you both too.
So we were talking about basically being a workaholic and how it feeds part of us to get there. Well, I used to think I was a workaholic when I was in my career in education.
Mhm.
And then I retired. And that pales in comparison to what I'm doing now.
Yes.
Had no idea that this is what this part of my life would look like. But when people said, okay, now that you're retired, you're just going to kick back and, eat bonbons. And I thought, no, I don't see that happening. But I also didn't see happening what was being laid out in front of me. So when we talk about a soul's calling and, following your passions, when I got connected, you would say awakened. When I got to know Archangel Michael and Archangel Raphael about 6 years ago, that set me on a curriculum of learning, and it set me on a curriculum of sharing. And it's that curriculum of sharing that tends to take a lot of time and a lot of energy, and it tends to take on a life of its own. And we've seen that over and over. And those times that Spirit says, now you're just going to listen, not putting anything new on your plate, but now you're just going to sit and get a little bit. I would get kind of fidgety. And it took me several of those times to be able to say, okay, I can do this. I can just sit and learn, because I know that eventually they'll come up with okay, now why don't you do this? And then I can get back into that cadence. But you're right. To me, there is a cadence of the day. There's a cadence of the activities. There's a synergy in growing and expanding. And Enlightened World and Enlightened World Network has been in a growth, huge, massive phase. We launched 11/11 of 2018, I'm guessing. I'm horrible at dates. I know the 11/11 part. And ever since, it's just been Katie bar the door that whole time. But now I know why. I was hearing, write this post, and I said, what am I writing about? And they would say, write about this. And they would say, and when I say they, it's usually Archangel Michael, and we'll wait. So meaning, don't take a week to write this. I mean, like TikTok, write it now. So I would write it, and then I would hear the next thing to do. So that's really how this has gone. And actually today was a kind of a mile marker for me. I saw on EWN, Enlightened World Network on YouTube, we have 540 shows up, which is massive when you think that really we launched this 2 years ago. So I understand everything you're talking about, Deb. Absolutely, I do.
Yeah. So, what that is so true. You're getting messages from whoever you're connected with spiritually, and sometimes there's a time attached to it.
And sometimes not.
And sometimes there's not. And you're right. There's times that what we're doing is learning a lot and doing a lot. And then there's times where we're just integrating. It's a time of integration and things slow down. Because I'll start asking, well, you haven't really given me too much to do. So I'm actually asking for it. So part of this is also ego driven, and we don't even realize that energy is the momentum of like, give me something to do. And it's so funny to watch, but there are times where it's just integration. it's now time to practice everything that you're doing. And that's when you say you get the chance to see how antsy you can become, even in this process, of that there's anxiety under there. And then when you get shown what the big picture looks like. So for me, one day Jesus took me to a theater in meditation, and so he said, we're gonna watch your life on the screen, like what's to come. I was a wreck. I didn't want to see it. I had so much anxiety about what was happening, and I just couldn't deal with it. And so we did it another time when I felt more open. But all along, they have been showing me and telling me, this is what's in front of you, not with a timeline. You don't know whether it's tomorrow or it's 10 years from now. You have no clue. And so then you have a taste of what you know what's in front of you, and you just feel like you want to rush towards it. You want to make it happen instead of letting it unfold. And so you just like, okay, well, I can't imagine just sitting here and doing my little day-to-day things and that not happening. So I got to keep doing more, and I could keep doing more and more and more, because I believe that I'm making this all happen. And there's no truth to that.
Right. Along those lines, I had the coolest thing. It was probably about, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now. I had seen something in a meditation. It was actually a Reiki attunement. It was probably 3 years ago. And it was this vision that I couldn't even wrap my brains around. And I always wondered, so is that going to happen? What is that? And a couple of weeks ago, I realized I'm living today that which I saw 3 years ago. And it was such a cool coming to circle, it was awesome.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And no, sometimes we are living that in the moment, and we don't even recognize that we're living part of that it's already happening, but your mind doesn't see that you're already someplace in that progress. It's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Terry?
It is fascinating. And what I've experienced, can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought I was stuck there. What I've experienced is when I get a thought and I say, okay, I'll get to that eventually. I try to procrastinate, and then all of a sudden it's happening. It's like right there in front of me. Mm-hmm. And I don't really have to do anything. All I have to do is show up.
Right.
And that's what they've shown me most of the time is, it's not what you're doing. It's not your action. It's what's in your heart. It's your intention and your yes. When you say yes, then it all unfolds. It all just opens up for you. Mm-hmm. And I love the thought and what they've shown about the angel runners. They're all like running ahead of us. They're preparing everything. It's like they're clearing the brush off the path so that we can walk down the path. Mm-hmm. So I just have to trust. I just have to trust, believe, and show up. Mm-hmm. And they've got it all under control. I don't have to hold on to those strings to make things happen or anything like that. I'm just along for the ride.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great place to be. But I know that when people are going through this process, it takes a while to get to that place of trust. Yes. And in the meantime, it can create so much urgency inside of you. One of the things that I went through is when I was feeling in this urgent place, I was noticing that everything that I believe I was seeing outside of myself. So if I went on Facebook, every single post was about you're not doing what you're supposed to do. You need to get out there. You need a market. You this, right? And it was awful. And I was like, why do I keep seeing all of this stuff? And I'm like, oh, because that's my thought process. And I'm just getting a mirror of my thought process on Facebook. And I said, okay, so I was able to shift myself from thinking that way. And then, of course, I didn't really see that type of posts anymore. They just kind of dwindled off.
Mhm.
But these are things that we go through in the process as we keep becoming more and more aware of ourselves, how much anxiety can play a role. And it's because we're always getting pushed to perform from even the spiritual ego. It's the same thing. And we're trying to move out of that consciousness. We're trying right now, that's what all of this paradigm shift is that we stop believing that consciousness, that we don't have to let that type of energy move us, that we're in charge of your spirit. You is in charge of that, rather than allowing ego consciousness to keep creating fear of missing out. And all of these things pop up at times in my head. I know where it's coming from. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Where'd that thought come from? And so it's still active in us, even such subtle ways that you don't even realize that it's happening. It's staying present to really catch all the different nuances that are working on you all the time. So one of the things that I thought was pretty interesting, and I think I've told this story before, is when we were doing a day of transformation, or I'm not sure. I was sending out sharing all of these posts, and I thought, well, I don't know if I shared enough. And I was like feeling stress about it because I was like trying to get it out here and there and I was like, all this imposed anxiety. And I just heard, you can stop now. You don't have to do anymore. You've done enough. And by the way, you're not really doing anything. We're doing it. And you're just going through the motions, believing that you're doing it. And I was like, whoa, another reminder.
I remember that day, Deb.
It was actually the launch of one of the anthologies.
Is that what it was? It was the anthology.
Yes, it was.
That's what it was.
What a powerful moment.
Yeah.
What a powerful moment, and a reminder that things are being done for you. That actually your whole life has already been planned out, and that there's a plan unfolding in its own time. So how can you release the anxiety? And for me, it keeps coming back to trusting God, trusting the plan, trusting the divine timing, trusting and having faith that God is good and that your plan is supposed to come to fruition. And I thought, I can lean into that and take away. I don't have to get anxious about those things. And so when they do pop up again, that I can fall back into peace again and know, because it is true, like you're saying, Terry, every time I need something, it is right in front of me. Or I have a question, I just happen to open a book and there's the answer. Or I'm thinking about something and then I'm led to something in the house where I can find it, the answer to what I'm looking for. It is always, we're always being guided. It's sort of like you're here, but something else is moving you. And that's what God says that God's doing. I am you. I am moving through you as you. That's a lot to wrap your head around. It's a beautiful process.
Well,
It
and
really,
sometimes, Deb, I wonder, because something will come into my mind and then the question's formed and then I find the answer. So I don't even know if I'm the one coming up with the question or
uh-huh.
giving me the question. So I'll see the end. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, yes.
I think about that. Oh, well, there's okay.
Well, this is what's interesting. There's only one mind. There's only one mind of God. It's divine consciousness. So that's where those questions are coming from. That's where those provoking thoughts are coming from. And it's there you go. Like you're going to look for it. I'll be even told, I'll ask, what does that mean? And I'll look it up. So the thought came, I didn't understand it or a word. And I'm told, okay, let's look this up. So it's sort of like a narration. There's a narrator going on, and the narrator's God. And when we fall into believing in ego consciousness, which is what most of us are right now, is that you believe that there's something else controlling you when it's an illusion and there's really nothing there, but we think that something's there, and then we talk about it like we're talking about it today, is ego. So we keep making it real, but there's really only God. That is the only reality. And it's so beautiful to know that you're so guided. But I think it's really important as we go along and we keep experiencing ourselves, that we understand, do we have this underlying anxiety that is perpetrated in different ways? And then it's actually taking an effect on us. And so our passion can be feeling like it's draining, and it doesn't feel peaceful. It doesn't feel like joyful peace, peaceful joy. And I would get so focused in what I was doing that Jesus would say to me, you make it hard work when you become that focused. Like, I'm so involved in what I'm doing that I'm losing, the focus is taking the joy away from me. And he said that let's redefine what fun is. We got to redefine what fun is, right? Because I wasn't having a whole lot of fun for many years. And he said that as an adult, doing something that you're passionate about is fun. It's not work. So how do we lighten this up? How do we take away the urgency? How do we let go of, I need to keep grinding my way towards what I believe is coming in the future, and just sit back in peaceful joy and just do each day from that center in your heart, knowing that you're led. It's a practice. It really is a practice.
It really is a practice, Deb. And, the angels a long time ago told me to stop using the word work. We say it so often subconsciously. We say, I'm doing spiritual work, I'm doing my inner work. And they're like, no, it's not work. It's fun. It's exciting. It's discovering. So when we look at it that way, and I loved what you were just saying, when we look at it as something that's joyful instead of something, you think of work with that connotation of I have to do something, right? I have to constantly be doing and acting, but really you just have to receive.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about the anxiety. I feel that when I go into that anxious state is because I've stepped out of that path of just being and just receiving and trusting. If we're not trusting, that's when all the doubts start to come in, and the anxiety and the what ifs. We can get into what if all day long. but we don't really know what if. All we know is the now moment. So staying present and receiving that direction, that guidance, is what keeps us away from that anxiety.
Mm. Yeah, it sure does. It sure does. But you're always having to recognize where you are to move yourself back into that place. A lot of times, if you don't like the way you feel, that's a good time to check in and say, why am I feeling this way? Or why am I feeling overwhelmed right now? Why am I feeling stressed? This pressure of the passion of making sure that you're doing everything you can do to make your purpose happen is also coming from I'm not doing enough. I'm not enough. And so when we feel like we're not doing enough, that, which is an old belief system that is not true, it's faulty thinking, yet it runs through everybody. You just can't get away with it. And it's remembering that comes up to visit you every now and then, and that you want to check in with yourself and make sure that that is not what is driving you. I'm not enough, or I'm not doing enough. It's a lot of that is creating anxiety in itself. And that pressure is coming from maybe a pattern of a way you learned how to get work done. Is you have to do it a certain way with under pressure, especially like procrastination is one of those things. That's a pattern that I had found, that if I procrastinate, and this is not just me, lots of people do it. If I procrastinate, then all of a sudden I'm like down to the wire and I have to get something done at a certain time. And then what that does is it kicks in some anxiety, which then releases cortisol and adrenaline again, so that you get that task done. It's actually very snarky in the way that we actually, this is also a consciousness of, it became a pattern of how we get things done. It's like, okay, so I could get that energy moving inside of me again, and then I'm gonna be able to do all the things that I've been putting off. That is also another pattern of how you learn to go about getting things done. So there's so many different things that we do. This is really starting to look at your own self and the patterns that happen, the thoughts that happen, what keeps driving you, that you have to get out there and you have to, share everything as if the world is going to fall apart if you have not done that. So there's a balance between you matter in the world and what your gift is so important to be shared. But that we are not the savior of the world. That's God's job, is taking that angst off of yourself, that if you don't do whatever you think you need to do, that the world's going to fall apart, and it doesn't. I've had so many lessons from John the Baptist and Jesus and God about this, about like, what happens if I work with somebody? I was used to working with people for a year or 2 years. Every week they would come into the office, right? Well, once I started doing something like this, they were like, okay, I'm not really here to complain. And this is about doing some spiritual work and learning some things. And what happens if people don't come back? And John would just say, if they don't come back, they don't come back. It doesn't matter. If they come one time, they come one time. And if they want to come back again, great. He said most people don't want to do the spiritual work that we have done. They don't want to do the cleansing and the clearing of all the inner child work. They don't want to dig that deep. But that is digging that deep is what takes you to become more of a channel for what needs to flow through you. So as you keep going higher in consciousness, but I would feel pressure about like, how do I do this? And reminded constantly that you just do what we ask you to do, what we shared with you, and let us do the heavy lifting. That's all you're being asked to do.
So Deb, Tanya has a comment. The world won't fall apart, I agree. But many will say that if I don't do what's on my mind or jump at that opportunity, it'll get it moved along to someone else. If what you have is what's needed, I believe the universe will ensure it gets done. Perhaps that's what drives people or instills a sense of urgency.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Great comment, Tanya. No, your purpose, your path is provided already for you. And you don't lose that on anything. You don't. That's pressure from other people. It's also a sales tactic. It's a marketing tactic that I don't like. That if you don't do this right now, you're not going to get where you're supposed to be, and la 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 la. That's all BS. It is all BS. You've actually already lived this life. It's over. Like you've already accomplished whatever you were supposed to accomplish. And that fear of missing out, of not being who you were created to be or what you were brought to do, that fear is ego consciousness. Because your spirit does not fear. This was a big lesson too. Jesus said and talked to me about your spirit does not feel urgency. Your spirit knows what's coming and it does not feel any pressure or urgency at all. So if you are feeling that, it is coming from the belief in ego consciousness of what it's saying to you, what you think you're hearing. And it's also coming from your own, whatever fears you developed growing up about not being seen or whatever. There's all different things that we've all believed about ourselves. So how do we do this without urgency? How do you step into your passion knowing that you are divinely guided? Everything will show up exactly when it needs to be showing up on divine time, not on your time, and allow the process to just unfold. You are not going to lose out. You can't. And that, when you start hearing that from God, instead of other people, it starts to sink in more. Okay, I can let go some more. I can let go some more and keep letting go and keep letting go. And that's what we're going to do our whole life. We're just going to let go some more. Because just when you think you let go of everything, there's more and more and more. Because every day something else shows up. Something else creeps in. Whatever. And if you're feeling that urgency and you're seeing it around you, it's because it's in your own mind. You're getting a reflection of your own consciousness. And that's a great way to look at, what is going on in my head? What have I been believing or thinking to myself? We have all random thoughts going on all the time. I know I hear them. It really does speak to attachment, which can be and often is the opposite to flow. Yeah, that's exactly true. Is having an attachment to things. I have an attachment to the outcome of the vision I have been given in what is to be created in my life, in my purpose. It can be an attachment to anything. And the more we hold on to the outcome of that, we also shut down we shut down the understanding that God's more expansive than we are, and how we think something should play out may not be the way that it plays out at all. So we could be putting all kinds of energy into something that really we didn't have to put all that much energy into. It took us off focus, because we thought this was going to make it, or this person's going to make my passion come to fulfillment. There's no truth to that either. So these are a lot of things I experienced and asked questions about, because I did have a lot of anxiety about all of those things as I was going through these processes. Now, I have 3 books, going on a 4th, sitting here for 3 years. And I say to myself, wow, I haven't put those out yet. And I have a lot of other things I haven't put out yet. But what keeps coming to me is that these books are developing with me. They weren't supposed to go out yet. They keep changing. And so that when I do start working on one again, it's a completely different book than what I had written before. And so there's nothing wrong with the fact that they're not out yet.
Exactly, Deb. On one of my last books, I thought it was done. And I said, okay, Archangel Michael, am I done? And he said, no. And I went, well, what do you mean it's not done? It wraps up so nicely. And he said, no, you haven't lived the last chapter yet.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Divine timing.
It is all divine time. So we're making these ideas that, oh, it's done, or it should be this, or it should be that. And really, there's no truth to any of that.
Right.
So it's about relaxing into your trust and faith. That means spending more time, however you spend time, with God or Creator, Source, whatever you call divine love, and really allowing yourself to sink into the trust and the faith and the love, and let that beautiful love talk to you, and help you change some of the things the way you do things, or the way you perceive things, or that, not that you're doing things wrong, it's just that it expands your perception. And that will help you relax some more and let go some more. I did a show earlier with Jane Mountrose on the power of love. And that power is within us, helping us all the time. And it is leading us to for our purpose and passion to get shown out exactly the way that it's supposed to be. Exactly. Sort of even like the 3 of us meeting each other. It was all purposeful, and I didn't do it. I didn't do it. You were being led to reach out to people, right? Yeah. And you were being led spiritually. And so people and opportunities come into our life every single day. And when you're not seeing them, it might be because you're in a integration process of really spending more time with yourself and allowing all of the wisdom or the growth to happen within you. But you are being served. We're here for service here. We are being served all day long, 24/7, and it's magnificent in every single way. So I thought it was an important topic to really talk about the pressure of your passion, because I see it. I've gone through it myself. I see it. I have relaxed an awful lot since I first started understanding what I was doing. But it is always these little messages that get in your head too, that you think you're hearing about you're not doing enough. And I'm telling you, you are doing enough. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And every single moment, you get an opportunity to experience yourself in every single moment. And there is no wrong or right, good or bad about what you're doing. And when you start questioning yourself is when you start creating more anxiety in yourself and not trusting the process. One last thing is, I have a lot of things I was given to put out aside from the books. And I was like, what a blessing. What a blessing to have. Like, I don't get bored because there's always something I can indulge in my passion, and more keeps coming as I go along. And I was like, okay, I don't want to get overwhelmed about all of this. Where do I start? Because then I was going, oh, I should probably work on book 4. And when I get done, I'll do this. And I just heard, just do whatever your heart wants to work on that day, that moment, and don't worry about, I have to do it this way or concisely or whatever. That you pick any one of those things and just work on it and enjoy it. And I thought, wow, that felt really releasing.
Mm-hmm. Because then it's not work.
Mm-hmm.
You're enjoying your passion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you.
I just want to cut in here a second and say, when I look at Deb and I look at Terry and I look at I'm going to use the word work just because I haven't figured out another word. When I look at the offerings that the 3 of us are offering, and we have known each other. We met, I think I met Deb in maybe April, because it was over spring break that I reached out to you. And Terry, I met you in June, July.
Right.
And when I look at what has been created by the 3 of us and by each of us individually, I'm in awe. It's crazy, really, how much has been created. And part of that is the synergy. Part of that is us each listening to our own guidance and just going with it. But I think when somebody's really listening to that inner guidance, just get out of the way, because it's amazing what can come together.
Mm-hmm. So true.
I totally agree.
So true.
That's what I've been shown. Just show up.
Mm-hmm.
Just show up.
Mm-hmm.
We humans tend to complicate things.
Mm-hmm.
And all we have to do is just step back and say yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts to fall into place then.
It does. Showing up is very important. Balance is very important. So you're showing up, the more that you have yourself centered, the more you can show up and be balanced. But there is also a balancing act of what you're doing. So that's also part of understanding yourself, is where are you with all of that? And the more you could stay centered, you have the ability to do more.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it also shows that when the time is right, it just comes together. None of it has been a struggle. None of this has been a struggle for any of us. And yet there's this mountain of things that have come together.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you start to feel pressure, you just step back and say, okay, what's going on? And just get back in the flow again. That's what we do our whole life, is just step back and get back in the flow and step forward again. Reconnect, use the energy of, use your divine energy instead of your human energy, basically. Especially when you're doing things you love to do. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that the two of you are here with me. It is, it's just so important. I think these messages that all three of us bring, because we've all walked the walk and we keep walking the walk.
Sometimes running the walk.
Sometimes running the walk, yes. It is, it's a really a beautiful journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I am going to, do we want to remind anybody of anything before we get off?
Well, we've got tonight in 2 hours, we have Discovering Dragon Energy for anybody who is interested in learning more about that. Terry's going to be there. Deb, I hope you're going to be there. Anaya Joy Holili and Carol Ann Cross will be spearheading that event. And then we have Michelle Landers is going to be starting a new show starting tomorrow that has to do with numerology and intuition. So that'll be awesome. There's a whole lot going on with Enlightened.
And ladies, we are premiering The Broader Edge tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
Awesome.
On Enlightened World Network.
There's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on. All good stuff. Bringing you everybody's passions. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you, Ruth, for this beautiful platform.
Of course, of course. And to all of our listeners that are here with us, Tanya, thank you for joining in with us today. That's always nice to have comments from someone who's watching. Karen Palmer, everybody else who was here with us. We're so glad you joined us, and anybody watching this afterwards. On behalf of Enlightened World Network, thank you so much for spending your time with us. We love you all. We're so glad you're here for along the ride, and God bless, and y'all take care, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.